All right. Well, this is where we left off on that one. We've got a few more to do, or to work on. So anyway, I'm testing it out here in the YouTube live link. And so anyone joining me live, this is from my emeritus class of the fundamentals of watercolor painting. So if you are not in that class, you're definitely welcome here, but I'm just letting you know, we're coming midstream in a conversation that we started. So basically, we are doing some still life, just understanding how watercolor goes down on paper. So not anything too advanced. I'm trying to see which to start with first. So we've got the glass. Why don't we just go for that because it's right here. This is where we left off. It's still really fuzzy. We had all that wet on wet. And so there's a lot of cleanup to do with this as far as reining in some of the stuff going on. So I don't know. I'm going to play with it, just see what we can do. My usual advice is just that it's paper, right? And so knowing it's paper, of course, means like it's not a big deal if you wreck it, right? It's not anything precious. Looking for some colors to put down. It's not anything precious. If you can be just trying to figure out how to. I'm not used to the smaller box I'm seeing on the screen. Anyway, it's a playground, right? It's an experiment. It's a place to try putting down marks, and if they don't come out right, it's not a big deal. Because again, we're just trying to get some ideas of this glass without putting too much into it. Because again, this is just a beginning watercolor class. I don't want anything to be overdone. I just want to get the idea of this is one way to put marks down. So this was a wet on dry that I was just doing. I put a little bit more color over the top. When I do it with a flat brush like that, these same marks are going to show through. So I'm not stirring anything up. If I wanted to stir something up, for example, if I want to straighten that edge, and honestly, it doesn't matter to me. This is a very paintbrushes. This is a very painterly approach, and I'm not trying to get anything super realistic because that's not my style. But also, I don't feel like that's where we need to be right now. I've got some clean water on the brush. I'm just going to see if I can lift and straighten some of that, just if I wanted to be picky about it. So this was the, this was the water soluble graphite that I used to draw with that I got going away. Yeah, I think at this stage, like maybe it's into the paper, so it's like it can't really be erased at this point with an eraser. I could possibly still stir up and dry off my brush or get a new dry brush and pick up and see if I can pick up some of that. I think my best bet though is going to be once I get this background in. Once I get the background in, then that won't matter because I'll be able to cover that up. So I'm just gonna leave that for now and address the lime over here that got all. So this was fun to see because it did push over and make a little bit of a cauliflower edge, but I love the mingling of colors in that. It's kind of doing a lot of the things I wanted it to do. I think the last I showed you, I glazed over some color over the top to show you glazing, but just in case I didn't, I'm getting a little bit of yellow onto my brush here. I'll put a little bit more on top of that part just to get a little bit more translucency to that line. Now on the bottom, I'm going to get a little bit more of that indigo and see if I can sort of shadow side to this lime, and maybe even straighten it out a little bit. Now it's very, very half and half. So see, as I put that wet down over the top, it's a wet over dry. I'm going to take my brush here, a flat brush that's dry, and modulate that color. See, I'm just really, really carefully getting rid of that line that I created to have more of a transition with the color. So see how now it's looking a lot more dimensional. That's one of the things we were trying in class on Tuesday to get the idea of something with form, right? So you got to develop that form. It's layers that we build up. So this is the, second time on this little one. Yeah, I kind of want to, I think I'm going to drop a teensy bit orange of all things into just that and see what it will do as far as making that little bit of a stem part in there. I should have maybe a teeny bit more. And I could have done yellow ochre, all different, it doesn't matter. I was just trying that. Okay, so as far as the lime that's in the glass, I want to add a little bit more color to that as well. So all of these are just like it's got a lot of water in the brush, I just realized. So when you realize that too late, or not too late, I caught it before I put it down. I'm going to give a little gentle squeeze right there by the ferrule. That's going to control the amount of water that's being left out. Now I have a lot more control on my brush because I just wanted to put a little bit down. I didn't want it all splashing down into there. The lighter green, but now I'm thinking, well, let's try a little bit more of that. Yeah. I might drop some of that darker color down in there and see the indigo. Get a little. There we go. Okay, a teeny bit of that at the top, just sort of define that edge a bit. Okay, so this is feeling kind of in a comfortable spot. I want to add a grounding, like in the background. So, but I'm going to wait for that to dry and come back and do that next. I mean, after I let it dry. I'm going to bring over the other lime that we were working on just to refresh with that. That was the first of that. It's just on my little piece I was playing with. I'm trying to remember which way it even went. I don't know. Oh, right, because we had the cut piece. Okay. So in the meantime, yeah, my lime kind of moved, but basically, and dried up slightly. I left it here for a day or so. So you got the light side and the shadow side. I think the light is coming in. Yeah, we don't have the same lighting scenario at all. The good thing is that I took a photo, but I'll have to go find that photo. For now, I think I'm just going to play with cleaning some of that up. Because I think I know this was the cut side. This was going to be the other side. Yeah. You know what? I'm going to wait till I find that photo and then I'll come back to this. But it's nice to note this got all crazy wet on wet, right? But it's not too late to rein that in to either, upset that or let all that happen and create something a lot looser in the way of form. So we'll work on this, but I kind of feel more comfortable, I think, if I got my original lighting scenario back. So I'll do that in a minute. Sorry, because this is live. There's no way to stall it or stop it. So whatever. I'm still figuring all this out. Okay, so here's our garlic that we were playing with. Remember we dropped in all of this wet on wet just to create a really neat background. We didn't go into the garlic yet Now that this is dry, it's super safe to go in. It won't upset this, but I can also play with this first and then, another step in between actually going into the garlic. Doesn't matter. So I think I will just play with the garlic. The thing we were trying to notice when we were looking at this a couple days back was that there's all these different colors in it. The garlic's going to be affected by color that's around it. So like if I took this pink, right, you can see the pink reflected on the surface of that. Let's move around that side. You see, it's going to pick up some of that. So depending on what's near it, that white is going to show some of those colors. Let's see if I have something else bright around me. Oh yeah, here's a yellow piece. I have yellow by it. Notice you get these yellow hues going on in that. So honestly, you can get away with lots of different color scenarios here. And again, this is watercolor. Have fun. You can use your imagination, but you can also just look like, as I'm looking now, I'm seeing some of the blue. It's probably being picked up by the blue tape that's there, maybe. But also it is a shadow, and shadows, are kind of look good in pale blues sometimes. So get a little bit, just a hint. So it's a very watered down blue, but I'm going to go ahead and put some water there, but it's not even a non-fat mix of color. That's like a barely there color. It's almost like my water from the there we go. Sorry. Yeah, it has that sort of feel like, oh, that's just where I rinsed my brush, right? So it didn't really have a lot of pigment to it at all. But now I dropped a little pigment in that, and I can keep with some of these lines if I want, and manipulate it just a bit. If I want that to come down and under, I want maybe a touch bit darker underneath. And I've got a lot of water in this brush, but I'm going to drop it anyway and see what happens. Because I don't want it to be dark, too dark, because I don't want, I want it to be able to go into that shadow. And this is that controlling and letting go. So if I'm letting go, I'm letting go. And sometimes it's hard. It's hard to let go. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to get a little bit more color in here. Just kind of follow my lines. Just for now. Go down here. So now I've got just the basics of this garlic. Again, it's not really well formed yet. Oh, right, this is the little piece. That's a piece of skin that's trailing out. But this will be a nice beginning stage to this. After, there, you can notice there's these golden tones in it as well. There's little dents and little parts where, well, maybe. Let's see. Let's grab a different. Yeah, it's too cerulean. Let's see. Let's grab a little ultramarine and drop a little bit more into here and see what happens, because it's wet and I can let stuff go a bit. And maybe a little bit more into here to create that little indentation while it's wet. So that's wet on wet, and I'm charging a little bit of color and letting it kind of move through, somewhat move through what I have there. Maybe a teeny bit more down towards the bottom on this. So yeah, I can still work a few areas and do more, but at some point, I'll just leave that and let it dry. Then then you'll notice these light kind of golden tints and stuff. So I like going over with some yellow in certain areas. Of course, the yellow over the blue is going to make green. If I don't want that moving into the greens, and I might keep that separated, which is why I'm thinking, well, I'll let it dry. It could be okay to let it merge too. There's no wrong or right. These are just like trying different things and seeing what works. Get a little bit more blue in there before I do too much more. before I let it go. What am I thinking? Am I going to let it go and get some of that little scribbly stuff there? Get that a little darker there. So little bits. It's got a very crazy background. No idea how much of that I'm going to keep or not. Again, these are all just experiments. I would recommend doing, if you can do something like this, set up your page to do 6 of them and try them in different color scenarios. Try different backgrounds and different things. So you can see, again, you're always going to be learning the more you're putting stuff down. The more you're putting your paint down, you're learning how it goes down. You're learning all about that particular pigment, how, like, as I'm looking at this, it's like I'm not liking the way that indigo is going with the ultramarine. So I'm thinking, well, I should have probably pulled the indigo into there instead of the ultramarine, which I can still do. And I can start getting some of those ridges. Well, it's wet, so I can't really get too much of the line stuff going in, but a little bit. Probably a little too much, actually. I'm looking at those are heavy lines. And these are such delicate lines on the thing. Again, I'm not making something that is, this is a dry brush, a dry flat, so I can kind of lift a little bit of what I just put down. Not going to matter with that because that was very wet, but let's go on to this one. If we can thin that line down a bit, both sides. Yeah, I'm just sort of blending it. All right, again, let that dry and go back to it because that is the nature of watercolor. That's why you have multiple things going at a time so you can try out different things. I know as it's sitting there, it's like part of me wants to just tackle some of this, but it's probably going to bleed into it. Yeah. Well, let me think. Now, I think I'll come back to my glass. Put that aside. I don't know that this is really dry enough for us to do what I wanted to yet, but it might be. Let's just take a chance on it. I want to put a background in here because I'm just kind of curious what that would do. So I know I dropped that orange in there, and part of me was thinking, oh, an orange with the blue background. It might be really striking, or maybe on this part, and then a different color up here. And whenever I'm trying to figure that out, I usually kind of consult the color wheel or color theory. We've got blue, green. We could go analogous, like all the ones next to each other on the color wheel. So moving into from green to another shade of green or a yellow green, but that's a lot in there. So yellow, green, blue into purple could be interesting. Always decisions. That's just the thing. There's no right or wrong. It's just what you feel like putting on there. Or if it was all set up right now, it's set up on a white thing where I might take advantage of some of these shadows in here in the light, the way the light's hitting the glass and making this really interesting reflection on the surface. So keeping this white, there's a lot to be said for, as I put paint down, there's a lot to be said for keeping that white. But I do want to straighten out that. So maybe putting something darker in there would be an interesting thing. So let's see, let me find some paint and decide on that. And that was an ultramarine blue I used on that one. So yeah, part of me is, well, I could just go with indigo rather than black. I could have a black background. I could have these choices. Neutral tint. I might just play it safe and go neutral tint to see what happens. Because I do want to clean up the glass and see what happens if I go behind it with something kind of dark. So we'll try it. I'm making up a mix. Let's see here. So I'm getting it relatively thick, almost like cream. Because in this case, I don't really want too much else going on. Like that other background that we put in on the garlic that has, we dropped other color in to let it play together. That's different. And you could certainly do that. That's another choice. Again, if I had more than one of these, which I always tell you guys to do, but if I had more than one, then it would be pretty fun just to try lots of different things and see which I prefer. So see, as I come down here, since it is a darker, I should get the flat brush. Since it is a darker pigment, I can straighten things up, right? I can kind of cover my little drawing errors or whatever, my initial painting things that messed with the shape a bit. If I want it painterly, then I wouldn't probably, worry too much about any of this. And that's usually the way I paint is just like a lot more abstract in the things that I usually do for my own work. So, but I want to show you that there are ways to do this, especially if you're wanting to get a little bit more articulated form. I go right in next to that line, or I can keep a little bit of a white space there. Again, that's just a choice. So let's straighten up the edge of the table just a bit. So as you can see, like it's a little streaky. Had I put water down first and just let it move, that would be another way. Also, it's still wet, so I can always address that. It's just like when you're putting down a wash, I'm just going to be really smooth. And come to that edge, just be a little careful. Yeah, it's deep there, but let's fix it. You can also have the brush stroke going vertically instead of horizontally, and that would be another way to do it. But if you really don't want any brush stroke at all, then maybe like putting the water down first and letting the paint do more of the work instead of your brush technique. Anyway, there we go with that. Now, since we have a black background, you're probably going to see a little bit of darks coming through this clear glass, right? So if that was the wall color behind it or whatever set up in our still life, you're going to get a sense of some of that color coming in. So I'm going to get a little bit of that down in a few areas. It's probably not that. I'm not sure why I put it on the bottom as much, but I forgot I put that on the brush. Okay. Just pick stuff up and turn it around. I still want the idea of something being a clear glass. I feel like this is going to get overworked really quickly, and it is. Oh, well. It's okay. It's okay. Yeah, this comes down super narrow, so I'm going to maybe pull that out a little bit. Pull it back around. Redesign the glass slightly. Yeah, a lot of stuff going on in here. Yeah, as far as what I'm seeing on the table, got this pattern coming from this, but it's because of it's almost like a dappled light kind of thing because of the cut of the glass. Yeah, this is that glass too. I remember showing you that had also a design on it as far as like a painted little sun and dots on it, and I decided not to do that because there's already so much silly stuff going on in here, but oh well. I'm gonna, I tend to sometimes lose sight of the fact that this is watercolor, right? And part of the thing we like about watercolor is when you get to let the watercolor play and do those fun things that watercolors do. More of an exacting shadow under that. I think I will. Slightly. Ew, I didn't want that color. Our shadows to match because the shadow is the shadow. And sometimes there would be a little bit of reflected color off of the whatever is creating the shadow. So if I put a teeny bit of green in, but I went a little far. So yeah, kind of wish I didn't put that stroke in, but it's not gonna make or break this as far as an exercise in learning. So I don't know. Here we are right now with it. We'll see. We'll let it dry and see what happens. Maybe come back in and, when that's dry, to clean up an edge here or there. But honestly, oh, right. And then, yeah, we were going to deal with the inside of that lime. I remember I told you that last time too. I'll put a little bit of clear water on, see if I can pick up some of this. Yeah, probably too late for that, but not too late to go in a little bit darker around it instead. So that's what we'll do with that really quickly. And I just want a little bit. That's a little bit. I'm going way darker on this than I intended, but I think I'll put it down and then pick it up. And this is inside of the glass, so you're not gonna, stuff gets definitely skewed when it's underneath water or soda or whatever was in here that I'm no longer drinking. I'm putting some clear water on this just to, well, soften it and maybe lift some of it. So now I'm going to get a dry flat brush and pick a little bit of that up. I think that's working enough for me anyway for now. So we'll let that sit and see what happens. Yeah, when it dries, bring the garlic back over really quick. We're doing on time. So yeah, you can see this is starting to dry enough that I think I'll be comfortable with getting some of those yellow colors in. And then maybe playing with the background a little. So let's see. I just want a little bit in. The light is hitting. And just kind of stay a little bit loose with it, but I didn't. So even with that, yeah. I feel like getting, actually, I'm going to pick up from here, get a little bit of that red just back onto my thing and see. And pop some of that into here too. And start, it has such a harsh edge here. When you blend all three, red, blue, and yellow, right, you can get some of that sort of the golden browns depending on how much, and it's always going to be The opposites will generally go to a gray or a neutral or a brown in this case. So that's feeling kind of garlic-like, but it's also going darker than I'm losing all that bright light that I liked. Yeah, it's a shame. It happens. Let me get some of that neutral tint and see if I can leave a little bit on the ground, on the table, a little more shadow under that. And then we'll think about what we want to do with the rest of the table. Wait, up high with that tabletop in there. If I go over that red with the neutral tint, I'm kind of letting it still exist, but not as prominent, maybe, and not making it as crazy feeling as it was. So let's see. Let's make the table come up to about there. And yeah. And I was going to leave that. It's like, no, that's going to keep bugging me. So straighten that out. Okay. Yeah. It's got a ways. Yeah, definitely. Like, as fun as that was to do, I don't like the look of it. So that's like, in me, it's like, oh gosh, what did I do? I'm gonna. But whenever I do that, it's like, instead of being mad at myself, try to silence that inner critic, right? And say, oh, what else can I do? What can I do to make this better? And this probably isn't the answer, but let's find out. I'm grabbing some yellow. Nickel yellow. And so let's see. I'll put that in and stir this up a little bit and get rid of some of those marks. I think what more bothered me than the color, though, was just like, I like having fun stuff go inside my watercolors and make you look again, but it's not feeling unified. It's feeling like so many different things going on in here. And this is probably going to add one more thing to that, but you never know. So I'm just going to go for it. Why not? All right. Well, it's definitely a very dark background for this light garlic to exist in. I can pull in some of that there. I'm going to be taking some out as well, so don't panic yet. I know, I'm telling myself that, not you. Okay, so as I put that down, I think I'll take a dry brush and take it up so it's not so. Back to my hopefully painterly approach, and this is becoming a very yellow garlic. Then I'm going to want to put more purples or something down below. Green. Let's see. Let's get some of that blue I was using on there. Let's see. It's getting ready. Again, dry brush. Streak up some of the color into that. Oh my goodness, what's up? Yeah? What's the matter? That's Phoebe. I mean, that's not like, yeah, it's not bothering me as much as it was. It's still not what I probably set out to do, but again, it's watercolor. Watercolor, and we're trying to find that balance between letting the watercolor do what it wants to do and taking control over it. And you can have as much control as you want to some degree, but I think one of the beautiful things about watercolor is when we allow it to just have it say and do the things that it wants to do, right? And move around in different ways. So as I'm doing that, the watercolor, gonna let the gravity work too. It's wet. It's going wet on wet and getting some of those things out again that were happening in the background. See if we can pull it into this a bit. Maybe too much. And you can force it. You can add more water and like let it just kind of drip and see. So that's something. It's looking like, a quince or something, non-garlic. I'm still not too worried because I think that I can go in and refine it a bit. I'm definitely wanting to grab back some of that white, but this tan's so yellow. Feels like it's very staining. I'm trying to think what kind of paper I'm on, because I'm not feeling like I can lift off of this as much as I can on Arch, for example. So yeah, we're at the precipice of overworking for sure. I'm gonna let that sit, and I'm gonna call it for now. So hopefully this helped a little bit more. At least we push things on a little further. I think the main thing is for you guys to realize that that's what watercolor takes. You're playing, right? And you're letting things dry, and then you're going back, and it's never like super fast like you want it to be. So that's kind of how that goes. All right. I know as I keep looking, I'm looking at the screen now and talking to you and saying like, oh, I really don't like that. I'll do one more fix. I'll do one more quick fix before we go. My painter. My painter. I don't mind it. Yeah. I don't. Yeah. Well, yeah. Pushing more of that purple into there. We'll see where that dries and see where it goes. But for now, it's like whatever. Whatever's okay. I hope this helped a little bit, but yeah, I would want that little piece to be whiter where the light was hitting it, right there. That's gonna bother me. And honestly, sometimes there's something to be said for using a masking fluid in certain places, but that's for next week. There's also fixes like, probably not this, but let's see what this even writes. Oh yeah, there's fixes like this white paint marker or going white gouache and reclaiming some of that once it dries. So, there's ways to fix it to get it to where I like it. Again, that's just, sometimes it's letting go of what we had intended and what we end up with and seeing if we can appreciate it anew. When it does dry, I do want to see some of these ridges and lines. I want to get more of that garlic. I want to develop that top core a little bit more. Definitely a shadow on there and messing with that a little bit more on the ground. But it's all practice. That's what this is. So keep that in mind. Enjoy. Bye, everyone. Hopefully this loads into your module. We'll see.